When you have no access, you have no justice. Justice becomes for sale. And sadly, that's repeating the same thing that we had under the British Crown. We have turned back the clock on our great American experiment. And today, if you want to get into the courts, then you damn well better be ready to pay. Once I had discovered all of these great truths, I decided that I would have to test the validity of the courts, test the ability of a common citizen. You see, that's all that I am, a common, ordinary man, just a citizen. So I tried 3 times to get into the courts, and I was turned away all 3 times by judges who simply ruled me out, saying, you have no power, you have no authority, you have no access. So I did, in 2018, January 1st, I took another one of my construction tools, a sledgehammer, and I went down and I attacked the Montgomery County Courthouse. I struck it 10 times, expecting the police to come and arrest me. But it was January 1st. There were no cars on the streets, no police, no one. So I had to call the police myself and dial 911 and told them that there's a man attacking your courthouse. They asked me for information. I said, yes, I'm the one doing it. You need to send the police over. And I waited, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, and finally 2 or 3 police cars pulled up. I made sure that the first police car that pulled up saw me strike the wall again, and I struck it another 10 times. I made sure that the pattern of blows was in the shape of the sign that I had made, pleading for equal access to the system of justice. And I made sure that I had all of this evidence along with me, and I made sure that when the police did finally arrive, I struck the walls again 10 times to make sure that yes, the police could testify this man was striking the wall of the courthouse. And this is the hammer that I used, and this is the tag showing where it was in police custody and part of my evidence, along with these, which is what I used to carry my bricks and my books with. Part of what I was doing was the bricks to try and remind me of the history that I was trying to cover, trying to remind me of the people in history that have been so influential in creating our judiciary, and now they're completely cast aside, just like I was. Strangely enough, I did not learn until I was about 35 years of age that I was disbarred 10 years before I was ever born, which I was born in 1949. And the State Bar Act took effect in 1939. And what's interesting about that is we call it the State Bar Act, but in reality, it was the State Disbarment Act. It disbarred 99.75% of the population of Texas, and this reverberated through all the states in America. And the interesting thing, most interesting thing to me about this is we call it the Texas State Bar Act, when in reality, it only created a bar for 0.25% of the population, but it disbarred 99.75% of the population. But you have to remember, guess who got to pass the law, and they named it what they wanted to name it. And that is where you had the judiciary take over the profession of lawyer. And that is where access to justice, direct access for citizens, ended. There is no more direct access. You now pay the judicial legal profession. They are often referred to as the gatekeepers of our rights. And that's exactly what they are. The gates are closed. Just like when I used this hammer, I was trying to open the doors of the courts, but it's still not allowed. They are not going to allow anyone to come in that might jeopardize the power of the judicial legal profession. The preamble to the Constitution of the United States really, in just the first few words, laid the foundations for what all Americans were trying to do at that time, and what we're still trying to do. We're just not good at it sometimes. You know, sometimes we fail, and sometimes we go astray. But the preamble, it always starts with the right words. We, the people. The nature of the Constitution was that all the rights, the preamble all the way down through the Bill of Rights and the amendments, etc., those were still for we the people, trying to move us forward, you know, morally, ethically, in many different ways. The only problem is that there were times when things happened that we didn't notice. One of those things was the passage of what we call today the State Bar Acts. Today, every state has a State Bar Act, and we even have, the federal government has a State Bar Act. And the State Bar Act did the one thing that people did not understand. It took away we the people and inserted we the judicial legal profession. That particular law was passed at different times within the states. I have researched several of those states, and most of them were passed during a period which we call the Great Depression. It is a time when people were so busy, the average citizen was so busy trying to put food on the table, preserve their employment, take care of their family. We have many movies, many books about what was going on at this time, and all of them, whether you're talking the Okies or whether you're talking just about everyone in America, well, and the world, because it was a worldwide depression, people weren't paying attention to what was going on in their state houses. And that's one of the things that happened in Texas. You also had certain influences that were moving the laws in the state of Texas. Some of those influences were people were becoming more educated that had never been educated before. For example, women, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, well, Texans, they were becoming educated. And when they become educated, they begin to have aspirations of becoming part of a system that begins we the people. And they begin to believe themselves to be part of we the people. But there were also counterproductive groups. The KKK, Ku Klux Klan, was very, very big during the 1930s. In fact, they were so big that they could have Klan meetings out in front of the Capitol building, which are well documented. You had so many influences that were going on all over the place, but the problem was the average person, the average citizen, wasn't paying attention. They were concerned with everyday life. These minorities that were coming along and women that were coming into their own and wanting to become part of the system. Well, the State Bar Act was the most efficient means of completely shutting that off. And it worked so well that minorities and females, except for a very small number, never achieved success in political office and things like this for many years. And the citizen lawyer was actually outlawed by the act itself. Prior to 1939, all citizens in Texas qualified as what we call citizen lawyers, such as Sam Houston. Sam Houston never spent a single day in law school, and yet he could hang out a shingle as an attorney because it was considered a citizen's profession, just as it was in Illinois, where you had Abraham Lincoln hanging out his shingle, and yet Abraham Lincoln never even attended a day of formal schooling at all. He literally did learn how to read and write and by the fireside, and it was just his personal drive that helped him to become what we all know as the President of the United States. But the point is, that was going on everywhere. No one was required to attend a law school in order to become a lawyer. The citizen lawyer was the norm because it was, at that time, was believed that the law belonged to we the people. But when the State Bar Act was passed in Texas and was being passed all over America, it was a way of ruling out the people. In fact, the State Bar of Texas, it was created for 0.25% of the population at that time. Well, what's interesting is prior to the passage of that law, 100% of the citizens qualified to be citizen lawyers. But after the passage, no one else could become a citizen lawyer because they were outlawed. Only judicial lawyers, lawyers or people that were pre-selected by the judiciary, trained by the judiciary, tested by the judiciary, and then monitored by the judiciary for their entire practice, for as long as they practiced law. That's why they became judicial lawyers. Only the judiciary selected them. And the problem with that is what was at one time a right to everyone, that's access to the courts, was after that restricted to only that 0.25% of the population. We not only have a chance to save our democracy, saving our democracy is easy. It's the simplest thing in the world if the 99 2/3% of the population would say, wait a minute, we want to add a few pieces of paper here to all these laws that you've been passing saying we have no rights because we want you to do something like judicial lawyers. We want to put down that your first priority when you go into a courtroom is the truth. You must represent the truth. Not only the judge, but the district attorney and the defense attorneys. You cannot go into court and lie about your clients. You no longer can go into court as a defense attorney and say, my client says this, when it's obviously a lie, but you can get away with it because it's ethics. Ethically, you can lie, you can do anything that you want on behalf of your client as long as you maintain the ethics of the profession. But the sad part about it is that most people aren't aware that one sheet of paper added to the law, the State Bar Act, it says that all practicing judicial lawyers must represent the truth first, their clients second. And they must represent the truth first, their profession second. That way you actually prioritize the truth. You see, the truth serves all citizens. It not only serves the 99 2/3% of us that can't get into the profession, but it also serves the profession. It would give them back something that is missing from the judicial legal profession, and that is the truth. My profession was in construction, and so I used the materials that I worked with all of my life. And the great American experiment was our democracy that was set up technically in 1787 with the passage of our Constitution, which began "We the People."